Hey, welcome back to All Things Baseball Podcast. This is episode 18, the offseason. We had special guest Briggs McMullen. I've known him for about 5 years. We went to school together, and he really knows his stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna love this interview. I mean, he knows his stuff. He knows everything Michigan.
Detroit fan, yeah.
He knows everything Michigan. He knew the Tigers in and out, and I think he really took us on a journey of their season and what he's expecting and hoping.
Yeah.
And
All right. Yeah, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back. So today we have a really special guest. It's a lifelong Tigers fan, Lions fan, all around Detroit fan. I've known you for Briggs. How long? 5, 6 years now?
Probably 5 years, yeah.
5 years, yeah. We met at UAB. We went to school together. But it's Briggs McMullen.
Hey, Briggs, how's it going, buddy?
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. It's not even just Detroit, all things Michigan, right?
All things Michigan.
I mean, you're Michigan.
That's right.
You're the Michigan man. Tell us about how you became a lifelong Michigan sports fan and how you got into it.
Yeah, so having the roots that I did, my dad was a Michigan man. He went to the university. He is just that's where I got everything is from him. Him and my grandfather just loved Michigan and the Red Wings and the Tigers and everything. It was just so cool growing up, having those figures in your life that teach you about the game and, you're trying to do all the stuff when you're younger that the pros do. So
right.
It's just really cool. I mean, those figures definitely just helped me, love sports.
So what were some of your earliest memories of teams that succeeded and you felt were really cool to witness?
Yeah. So growing up, my main sport that I loved was basketball. And when I was about probably 4 or 5 years old, the Pistons, they just got off a couple back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals losses to the Nets.
Right.
And they finally made the NBA Finals, and they were going up against Shaq and Kobe.
Right.
So when I was 4 or 5 years old, that's usually that playoff run is really when I started to get into it. And
is that the Chauncey Billups years? Chauncey, yeah.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace.
Right.
All those guys. And, seeing them, because I think the Lakers had won 2 of the last 3 finals.
Right.
And the Pistons were not even supposed to be there. They were the underdog of all underdogs. They played defense. It was so fun to watch. So that was really my first team that introduced me into, the sports world.
Right. Gotcha.
Nice.
Okay. And then obviously you just enjoyed the national championship from last year's Wolverines team. They're not quite as good this year, but that's to be expected after the changes that they had. But that must have been fun, a wild ride watching that season.
Yeah, that was a long time coming. My dad got to watch the last one before I was born in 1997, and he always said that I was the curse. They won in 97. I was born in 99, and they just could not get there for so long. And then, the COVID season happened where they went 2-4, and everyone was like, Jim Harbaugh's got to go. They're not,
I remember that.
Everybody's falling apart.
Right.
And the 2021 season, I don't think anybody expected them to be there. They were kind of a scrappy group. Relied on defense. They ran the ball, and they beat Ohio State. Beating Ohio State is the best feeling in the entire world, no matter how bad Michigan is.
Right.
Yeah.
If you beat Ohio State, you win. It's the best season ever.
Yeah.
And beating them 3 years in a row, and finally after losing in the playoffs both years, we made it. And then this third year, it was like, okay, we've been here before. We know what we need to do. And that Alabama game, getting over that hump, I really think once we won that game, in my head, they won the national championship. I think that was the hump they had to get over, was the SEC.
Right.
And, of course, they lost Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter to the Chargers, and then they lost 17 pros to the NFL. So it's a tough transition year.
It is.
So hopefully by next year we'll have this thing figured out.
Good. Well, good. So you're fresh off of that, and I know you're a lifelong Tigers fan, baseball fan. This is an all things baseball podcast, so we wanted to kind of get your take on do a season recap of the Tigers and how they fit in the division and what you saw and how much fun they were. Obviously, at the end of the season, share with us how that ride was for the Tigers this year, and then we'll get into maybe some of the offseason stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so at the beginning of the year, they looked really good. I think they started off like 10-2, 11-2, something like that. They got off to a really hot start. They swept, I think 3 of their first 4 series, and they were looking like, okay, this team's got something. They got some juice. And then they do this every year. They do it, and usually it's May or June. They just have the worst month of baseball.
The June swoon.
We can't hit. The June swoon. Yeah. It's usually for us, it's May. So it's always like that every single year. And I think they only won like 5 games in May. So they were behind. And then, in the end of June, early July, they started kind of winning a little bit. And then they got to the trade deadline, and you're like, so what are they going to do? Because, Tarek Skubal was being in talks, with the Orioles, maybe getting Jackson Holiday, maybe something like that.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, Jack Flaherty, who we inevitably traded to the World Series champion Dodgers.
Right.
I think they handled that pretty well. I do. I mean, Jack Flaherty coming in this year was coming off a career worst year.
Right.
And you were just hoping you could get a glimpse of what he used to be.
Right.
And he pitched phenomenal for us. Like, he was a very, very good number 2.
Right.
And I think that's what he can be. I think that's his ceiling.
How long did you guys, do you remember how long you guys had him for before he got traded?
Yeah. So we signed him to a 1-year deal. I think it was like $16 million in the offseason. And so I was kind of excited because the Tigers, I think, have a really, really good pitching coach in Chris Fetter, who's a Michigan Wolverine. And Chris Fetter just, I don't know what it is. He churns these guys, like these career-long relievers and these career-long, back-end starters, and he just turns them like, he unlocks another gear. Like, it's just incredible to watch.
Right.
And, the Flaherty trade, they got Trey Sweeney, who was inevitably our shortstop after Javi Baez got hurt.
Right.
And they got, a young switch hitting catcher from the Dodgers and Tyrone Lorenzo. So I think it ended up being a pretty good trade off. And then, once the season really got going for them, was I really think against your Yankees in that World Series, that Little League World Series game. They were down all game. They were battling, and then they ended up walking it off at the end. And since that game, I think they finished the year 31-13. That was the game-changing game, in my opinion. They were 55-63 on August 10th, which they had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs at that point. And they finished 86-76.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Yeah, wow.
That makes it fun for the fans too, right? So you don't have high expectations, and then all of a sudden you have this flourish of a finish, and then it just it gives the fan base hope. Like, I'm rooting for a team that is fighting out there and beating some of the teams that were considered the better teams, and then you go into obviously this off season, and now you're talking about, well, what do we got to do to get over the hump? What do we got to do to get to that next step? And that's where we're at now, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
keep the superstars and add more firepower. I mean, you got, like I was saying earlier off camera, Colton Keith, Riley Greene, and I mean Skubal, of course, but I mean, you add a little bit more firepower to these guys, and you're gonna have a pretty dynamic core group of guys that you want to hold on to for the next,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, tell me about Riley Greene, because I had him on my fantasy team and he did fine. He did
Mhm.
well. I didn't know if he was going to be a bust. I knew he got injured the year before, didn't play that many games. And I thought,
Mhm.
God, this guy's fast. They moved him over to the corner, though, right? He wasn't a center fielder anymore. So they moved him to the corner. He stole some bases, but they stopped stealing him. He didn't steal that many, right?
No, he didn't steal that many. I mean, for him early in his career, like I think they drafted him fourth overall, and he was the next, star high school prospect.
Right.
Like
That's what I remember.
once you saw him in high school, you're like, okay, this dude could be some special. And
Right.
it only took him 2 years to get up to the big leagues.
Saw
And
that.
having a farm system with him, because him and Spencer Torkelson were together the whole time at Double A and Triple A,
Right.
and you get to see them grow was
Right.
awesome. And Riley Greene, it was just kind of unfortunate for him early because you know I think he had a lot of pressure on him. I do, because he was this highly touted guy. He was the next high school, superstar bat,
Right.
and you didn't know whether, because he's kind of awkward. I'll say that he runs weird. He's
Mhm.
kind of like a deer out there. It's kind of weird, but you know he worked his way up to the farm system, and being with Spencer Torkelson, getting through there, those guys were 1 and 2 in, a lot of the MLB prospect lists. So them
Right.
growing together, I thought was pretty cool. And, just early in his career, it was kind of tough. He had some really unfortunate injuries. I think he missed 6 months with a broken foot with a foul ball.
I
And
remember that.
then,
Yeah.
he had some, I think he had a hamstring injury running to first, and then he hurt his wrist diving for a ball. But he wasn't the Tigers' select all star. Like the players and the fans voted him in,
Right.
and I think that was just really cool to see, because the Tigers have not had a bat and a presence like that at the plate in so long. Like I cannot remember since
Right.
maybe Prime Miguel Cabrera is like the
Mm.
last guy in the box that I could think of that, this guy can do some damage. So
Yeah.
So he tapped into his power this year. His average was good, not
mm.
outstanding, but good, solid. How was his on base? Did he walk? You would know that better than me.
Yeah, I think he was hovering around like an 820 OPS. So I mean, he had a
Okay.
very good eye up there. And like you said, he untapped his power, which we really needed, because
Yeah.
we don't hit many home runs. We really
Right.
don't. It's
Right.
small ball, base hits up the middle, maybe find a gap every now and again, but we do
Right.
not hit home runs.
Now, tell me about Torkelson, because I know he was really touted, and I know he struggled when he first came up. What was his year like, and do you think he's gotten over the hump?
Yeah, I've tried to give him so many opportunities. Like at the end of the year last year, the first or the last like 3 or 4 months, he only had like 2 home runs going into the last 3 months, and he finished with 30. So you're like, okay, this dude's finally here. He finally figured it out,
Right.
and he comes into this year and he did exactly what he did last year, which
Yeah.
was he started off okay, and you're like, all right, this dude's finally coming around, and then 5 months of just so inconsistent, you don't know which torque you're going to get. So it was really better at a lot of areas at the plate. Yeah. And, just coming into this year, like he started off the way he did, which was, it was looking okay. He was hitting the ball. He at the beginning of this year was so bad with hitting the ball so hard right at people.
Oh, okay.
And
That's unfortunate.
that's just very unfortunate. And I really do think that affects your confidence up there. Like you're like, oh my God, I, just get me on base. No matter how it does, I want to get on base. And for him, I really do think it got in his head, because they sent him down for a month and a half this year.
Right.
And
Okay.
I remember
he
that.
needed that for sure, because he came back at the end of the year and he looked comfortable. Like I think he finished the year after he got called up with like a 735 OPS, some along that range. But he's actually a really good defender, and it sucks because he's so good at defense, but at the plate, it's just you don't know what you're going to get. And that
Right.
really sucks because he needs to hit up in the order because we know what he can do at the plate. So
Right.
I
And
think you got to give him one more chance,
right.
towards the start of the year. And other than that, you probably got to go find somebody if he sucks again.
How old is he now?
He's 25.
He's definitely at that
Yeah.
age where he's going to have to put up or
Kind of
shut
has
up.
to turn around the
I,
corner.
I always,
Right.
I'm an old timer, so I always think of Mickey Mantle and the
Mhm.
story of him when he got sent down. He was the next, Joe DiMaggio and Babe Ruth all rolled up in one, and he came up in 51, and it was DiMaggio's last year, and he came up as a right fielder, and he struggled really bad, and he tore it up in the minor leagues, and they sent him down, and he struggled in the minor leagues. And the way the story is told, Mickey Mantle used to tell it all the time. He called his dad, and who lived in Oklahoma, and he was in Missouri at the time at a hotel, and he said, "Come get me. I'm done. I can't play baseball." And his dad came to get him and pretty much reamed him out and said, "I thought I raised a man. You're giving up. You know, just pack your bags and let's go." And Mickey was like, "I can't believe he didn't try to talk me out of it. And as the story goes, he begged his dad to give him one more chance, which his dad is what he wanted to hear. And then they brought him back up, and he just absolutely took off and became Mickey Mantle, you know. And he ended up blowing out his knee in the World Series against the Giants on a Willie Mays bloop hit in between Joe DiMaggio and him. But he ended up, having no problem, obviously, after that when he came up, back in the lineup in '52. But I always remember, and Mickey was only 21 at the time, so a little bit different than
Mhm.
Torkelson. But I do know that some of these guys, when they click, 24, 25, you go, okay, this is what we thought we were getting. So to your point, hopefully that's the case with Torkelson. Or if the
Yep.
confidence is so shot, then like you said, you kind of got to kick him to the curb and just try something else. Talent
Yep.
is one thing, but if you can't, put it together, then you do have to go to the next. I hope for the Tigers' sake, because we like the Tigers.
Yes.
We like them. We like the way they play. We like some of their players, and we hope for your sake and the Tiger fans out there that they're competitive. Tell me how what is set up for next year for the division? Like, what do you see the Tigers doing this offseason? How far away are they, and who else is their biggest rival next season?
Yeah. Division wise, the Guardians. Here's my thing with the Guardians. They are probably the Tigers are light Guardians. Like if you know that saying, like
Yes.
they're Guardians light, which means exact same team, just a little worse. And they have, an incredible bullpen. That
Right.
bullpen was fantastic.
Yeah.
Clase, Cade Smith, all those guys. And the Tigers, I really do think, are battling, with a division that's up and coming. The Royals looked really good this year. They have, Bobby Witt, one of the most exciting players in baseball. You got Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo for the Royals. And then, the Twins, it was so fun watching them collapse as we were just passing right on by them. It was so much fun watching that. But,
Yeah.
Right.
the Twins, I think that division's just it's going to be really competitive. I do. But as far as the offseason, the Tigers need some pitching. I really do think. They had Flaherty on a 1-year deal and got rid of him, but you have Tarek Skubal, okay, and you don't want to waste that prime. So you want to get some guys, even if it's, a couple inning eaters at the back of the rotation that'll give you a 4.1 ERA, but they'll eat some innings. And I think that's kind of what their problem was is after the trade deadline, they just got really thin pitching. Because Reese Olson got hurt right off the break,
Right.
and they were at a point where they would just go Tarek Skubal and then 4 bullpen games in a row. It was so incredible, but they kept winning. And it was like, how is this working? But it ended up to work. And,
Right.
I think they just need some pitching. They need to try to get rid of Javier Baez. I can't do it
Mhm.
with him anymore.
Who was
He's just,
Yeah.
who was the mullet and the mustache? Andrew.
Andrew Chafin.
Yeah, I
Yeah, the
remember
big
him.
lefty.
Yeah, I remember seeing him, like you said, kind of eat up some innings. And they kind of
Hmm.
relied on him a little bit there. And
Hmm.
you guys had him in the rotation pitching a pretty good bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they had to just call on some like it was funny just because me and my dad would watch and they would throw some guy who we had never heard of for 5 innings.
Unfamiliar.
And Chris Fetter would get him to throw 4 or 5 innings, a 1 run, 2 run ball, quality start, and then the
Right.
bullpen would take over. But they need to add a little bit more speed on the infield. I do think, I mean, their shortstops are kind of slow. And then their middle infield, like Colt Keith's going to be fine at second,
Yeah.
but I do think they need a true third baseman and a true shortstop. And if they could just add like another decent platoon player, like I do think
Where
that
will
that's
Jace
fine.
play? Where?
Jace Young,
Yeah.
Jace Young for me right now, I don't think he has a place on the team. I
Okay.
don't, and that's so sad
Yeah.
because this guy, we drafted him in the first round and he was, you see Josh Young, like he's a clone of his brother, but from the opposite side of the plate.
Yeah.
So really high hopes for him. And then, as soon as he got called up, all these guys, started to piece it together.
Right.
Colt Keith and Justin Henry Malloy. And, Zach McKinstry gave you great at bats late in the year.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of hard for him to play. And, I really do think that he could end up being a trade piece at some point. He's got a lot of potential. He's a lefty bat. He can give you some thump. So, I mean, I really hope that he can find a way, but I just think this lineup's too crowded for him.
Right. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, that
Listen,
can happen,
every team's got to deal with a player that's
For
where do
us,
they fit?
for the Yankees, it was Urshela. There was no spot for him in the lineup anymore. So yeah, and then it's similar.
A couple of years ago,
Yeah, I mean it's just infielders. Like if usually it's the bat or errors that usually will make the manager or the owner say, all right, I think it's time to move on. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with him moving forward.
So off season, okay. So let's get into this a little bit, right? So we got a good feel for the Tigers, and we still want to talk about the Tigers. Are they in play for any of these top free agents? I mean, do you see Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Blake Snell, Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, Juan Soto? Obviously, Flaherty is still a free agent. I don't know that they're going to go back after him, but you said they need pitching. Do they go after any of these big guys, or are they going to just try to piece it together with trades and stuff like that?
Yeah. The only kind of guy I can see them maybe going after is Nathan Eovaldi. Really, really solid pitcher over his whole career, won a World Series with the Red Sox, pitched pretty well for the Rangers. And, I think he's not like super young, but, if you give him like a 2 or 3 year deal worth, 20 something million a year,
Yeah.
20 mil,
Yeah.
19.
He's 35. By the way, he sucked with the Yankees.
He was year, yeah.
Horrible. And then
I remember that.
And then he went to the Red Sox, and he was a Yankee killer. Like I guess
Mhm.
he was pretty ticked off with the way the Yankees treated him too. And he had some
Mhm.
he had some reason to be. I think they mishandled him, and he
Mhm.
was able to pitch the way he needed to pitch. The thing about him, he's like a cat with 9 lives. I mean, I don't know how many surgeries that guy's had.
Yeah.
He's
I
had
know.
at least 2 Tommy Johns, right? So, and he
Mhm.
had Tommy John, I think, in the minor leagues, and he had one in the major leagues.
Yeah,
And
his competitive spirit on the mound is
yeah,
beyond any other.
he really is tried and true. I mean, he's battle tested. He's done well in the
Mhm.
playoffs. I think for whatever reason, I don't think the Rangers will re-sign him. But if he's healthy, he's going to give you quality.
I think the Rangers, that's a team they kind of need to hit the hard reset again. Coming off a really lackluster year from the World Series.
Yeah, that was surprising though.
Yeah,
but I guess maybe not. I mean, they have their. I don't know what they're going to do with Scherzer, but they have DeGrom back, and he'll be, if he stays healthy. He's just, when he's healthy,
he's unbelievable.
He's unbelievable. Yeah. He really is. You look at the 2 or 3 years in a row he had with the Mets, he was untouchable. But okay, so maybe they go after Navaldi, but it doesn't look like they're going to be in the running for Alonso or any of these guys who want.
Right.
I don't know what they want. I mean, Juan Soto wants $700 million. Do you have $700 million to give him?
If I did, that would be awesome because I would love to see him in the Old English D. I would. But,
doing the Juan Soto shuffle in the.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
You had a chance to go to Comerica Park. This was. Remember we talked about it a little bit at the end of the season, right? And you went to go see like a Lions game. And, take me back to when you got to go to Comerica Park. I don't know. How many times have you been there? What was the experience like going back again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we went on this trip. Me and my dad. It was kind of like a guy's trip back up to Michigan, see some family, and we weren't even considering going to the Tigers game, and because this was when we planned our trip was the Little League World Series game against the Yankees. Right. So we were like, let's keep an eye on them because if they get hot, like they can do this. Like they played like the Rockies, they played the White Sox for like 9 of the games. So we're like, okay, they can win every single game against the White Sox. And so we bought them when they were six games back, I want to say. And then we were going to the Lions game. That was our whole plan. Huge Lions fans. We went up there for the Monday night game against Seattle. Amazing atmosphere. But the day before, we ended up going to the Tigers game, and we bought the seats when they were $20. They were like right behind the dugout, the Tigers dugout, really close, for like $20. Wow. By first pitch, they were $280. So we bought them at the exact time. It was perfect. Yeah. But, just being back there was so awesome. I hadn't been back since I was like 7 years old. So it was so cool to see, all the statues in the outfield and, just to be a part of the ballpark experience. It's one of my favorite things ever. You get a hot dog, nice cold beer, some peanuts, and you just watch ball. It's so much fun. I love being back. It was awesome. Even though they lost to the White Sox, I didn't care because they already made the playoffs and it was just awesome.
Oh, you think maybe Eovaldi, not necessarily any trades. You have any predictions for trades? Who are you going to trade? Do you think they'll trade Jace? Do you think what will they get for him? Do you think it'll be more like some pieces in the bullpen? Do you think it would be maybe a couple of guys that are in Double-A now that could help in a couple of years? Like, what do you think you could get for Jace? And who else is a trade piece?
Yeah, I mean, so they have a really good farm system. I think they have a top 5 farm system in baseball. They got Max Clark, who's this next stud outfielder, lefty, supposed to be awesome. They got Bryce Rayner, the shortstop they drafted this past year. He looks great. And then Kevin McGonigal, who's another middle infield piece, who he's looked awesome. And then the one guy I'm really excited for is Jose Briseño. He is in the Arizona Fall League this year. He was one of 3 players, and the other 2 players were Bryce Harper and Ronald Acuna Jr. to hit 9 home runs in 5 games in the Arizona Fall League. Wow. So I'm really excited for him. He's got a ton of pop, but I do think if they wanted to trade for someone, I think they have the farm to do it. But our GM and POB is just, he loves this farm system, and I do too. But if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to give some of that farm away, I think, to trade for somebody. But some of these. Yeah,
I think if you have a top 5 farm system, though, you want to see like the Max Clarks. I mean, based on what I saw, and I have him on my fan, I picked him up early in my fantasy team. We have like a rotisserie league where you bid on players and you have
Like
so
the
much
chicken?
money.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Like the chicken?
Rotisserie chicken? Yeah, like the chicken.
I had some of that tonight.
Yeah,
I had it too.
And he just looks like the real deal. But he's only like 19, 20, right?
Yeah, like he'll post, on Twitter and just him getting swings in, and you're like, dude, this guy is awesome. Like
Yeah.
he just hits.
Tree trunks for legs.
And
Yeah, he's a
6'4",
stud.
right? Is he like 6'3", 6'4"?
No,
I think
No?
he's like I think I think he's like 6'2".
Okay.
A solid 6'2".
Maybe he
Like
can
he's
fly
a
and
built.
power. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
I wouldn't trade him
Mhm.
away. I mean, you got to let that.
They will
fly.
not do that.
Yeah, definitely don't
Stick in
trade him
center
away.
field for the next.
And then who was the guy you said again in the fall league? 9 home runs. Who was it? Say it again.
Jose Briseño.
Joe.
He's a catcher, first base type, but he looks really good. He's a big, big, big boy. He's a lefty bat. It's so nice to see. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, so you got to replace Baez. You got to, so you got some work to do. And
Definitely.
maybe the Tigers are more 2 years away. Maybe they make another push for the playoffs. And then maybe in 2 years, some of that talent comes up again. And then all of a sudden you're like, like the team to beat, or it's like, it could be like the Tigers and the Orioles, two of the better farm systems that all of a sudden start to, to flourish. So let's take a little bit of maybe a macro look now and look at this offseason and free agency. You got, the Japanese pitcher Sasaki, right? You may know more about what they got to do as far as like posting and getting that guy, to the major leagues. But will that guy, from what you've read, do you think he'll be on a major league team next season? That guy sounds like he's like another Mamoto, right? Yamamoto.
I think he's
Yamamoto.
Yeah. I think he's the best pitching prospect they've put out.
Yes.
He's got an absolutely electric fastball. Gets up to, 100, 101. He's got the just disgusting splitter that all the Japanese pitchers have. And,
Right.
He just looks like he's going to be a stud. But, I just can't see him going anywhere else but the Dodgers. But
they have so much pitching. Please don't tell me that. You're going to ruin my whole play. I think you're right, because these Japanese pitchers, they like being, with their teammates from the World Baseball Classics and from, the Nippon
who
Professional
wouldn't want
League.
to play with Ohtani?
Yeah, Ohtani's a legend already. I could see that. But, I mean, are they just endless money that they could throw more money on it? They have so much starting pitching. I mean, I think that's the way it'll go. But I gotta think the Mets or the Yankees or even the Giants will come in and try to, swoop in and get him, with something that you can't turn down. Because you got to post money before you even get to offer him a contract, right? So this is like big money.
Yeah. I can see, like you said, the Giants are another team because every single year, they will try to get somebody big. And, losing Blake Snell, I think they're probably going to. They may re-sign him still. But, the Giants are another team to look out for. He said he would not mind going to a smaller market team. For me, I don't really buy that, because how is he going to walk into LA in a meeting with the Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani and Yoshi Yamamoto sitting there with their feet kicked up with the World Series trophy right there and saying, how do you turn that down? It's just, I can't see him doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So go ahead. So tell me more. You've seen this guy. You've seen his splitter. You've seen him. You're thinking Giants could be there. Where did he say that he wouldn't mind going to a small market team? Was that through an interpreter, one of those interpreters that are stealing money, or do we trust this interpreter is saying he'll go to a small market team?
Yeah, I mean, from what all I've seen, it's legit, but it's hard for me to say that he would go to, a small market team like that, like, the Tigers. Like, you think he's going to come to the Tigers? No. He's gonna go. He's gonna go see in LA with Shohei and Yamamoto. And Shohei took that huge contract, but he's only making $2 million until he retires.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, so he's making that per year. So they have what seems like unlimited money, which it's incredible to me.
Well, if you're not afraid of paying the luxury tax and all that stuff, then I guess you just outbid everybody and you deal with the luxury tax. I mean, it's not certainly a deterrent for them, or the
Right.
Yankees. I don't know. Listen, there's all these free agents out there. Burns, I don't know where he's going. I don't think the Orioles would be able to keep him. Although, listen, I mentioned the Orioles and the Tigers in the same sentence. It's because when you have a farm system that the talent's starting to flourish. I mean, obviously the Orioles didn't have the experience to get to where they wanted to go at the end of the season, and they didn't have the pitching beyond Burns, but they're like right on the doorstep, and they actually have the Yankees number. I mean, they actually beat the Yankees quite a bit in this past season. So I think they're going to be there, and they'll probably make a run at Burns. I don't know what they have in the farm system for pitching, but they may lose Burns if he just wants a huge payday, which these guys, they all want a huge payday.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one of those guys, man. I mean, he is just an alpha on the mound. Like
Yeah.
these guys, the Scoobles, the Burns, the Skeens, all these guys are just true alphas on the mound that you
Yeah.
want the ball in their hand. And a team that I like to go try and get Corbin Burns is your arch rival, the Boston Red Sox, because the
Right.
Red Sox are open
Yeah.
and they're saying, they're trying to maybe try to get Juan Soto. That's what they're trying. They've openly said they've already sat down with them. And so, if you miss out on Soto, they don't need a Soto. They need a starting pitcher because that has been their downfall for the last, 3 or 4 years as they've
Right.
had, these guys come in, and they'll finish the year. They're all finished. Maybe one guy's under a 4 ERA. Like it's their bullpen, their pitching. And I think if they had a true alpha like Corbin Burns on the mound, I really think that Red Sox team could look pretty scary with how deep they are.
Yeah.
You're right. It's definitely not hitting. Outsider looking in, they have no problem hitting. Their team average is usually higher in the league than most, and it is just pitching. Like I think Tanner Hoop, the big righty kind of sidearm guy, he went down. They had a lot of injuries. And Brayon, where he was out for a while. Tim Hill, or Rich Hill. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they go after Corbin. Probably another piece in the bullpen.
Yeah, Juan Soto is rumored for the Red Sox, and I think that would be a mistake for them. Not just because I'm a Yankees fan, but I mean, right now, and the latest rumors about Soto, just to throw it out there, is that he wants to come back to the Yankees, but he's listening to the Red Sox.
That's right.
He's listening to the Mets, and he's listening to Toronto, which is interesting. But I think it'll come down to those four, with the Yankees to fourth. The Yankees, the Hal Steinbrenner listens to the fans, and they all want. So he had his best season ever as a pro, right? And he's had some great seasons, and hitting, in front of Judge is certainly not a bad gig. So he might give them a discount. He loved being a Yankee. He really did. And so,
Yeah.
but the Mets, he may want to get out of the shadow of Judge, although they like sharing it.
Be the superstar.
Yeah, the Mets will throw a boatload. I think the Mets will outbid everybody. So yeah, the Mets, they're going to make a run at them, a big run, and I think that Soto knows that the Mets are still second-class citizens in New York. I'm sorry for those listening. They're, they are not the Yankees, and so Soto loves being a Yankee. But $700 million will talk. I don't know that the Yankees will go past 12 or 13 years. I don't think it's ever a good idea to give someone that much money into their 41st year of playing baseball. If you want to give him a 12-year contract and have him play into his, late 30s, and have him play for 50 plus million a year, that's fine. But 38 is one thing. You start doing it 41, 42, then the last 4 or 5 years of your contract you're eating, and so that just doesn't seem like it's smart. But someone's going to do it. It's probably going to be the Mets, and then it just becomes will he take the big money or take the second biggest money? So that'll be interesting. Pete Alonso, I think they'll re-sign him. They like him. He's a Met. I think he's someone the fans love. He's a good player, not a great player. He's very good. He's had his moments too, clutch moments. Alex Bregman is one. Tell me your thoughts on Alex Bregman, because I don't think I think he's steady, but I don't know that you would pay in free agency for steady. You want to if you're paying big money, you want someone who's going to make a huge difference, not someone who's going to hit 270 and have 25 home runs and 85 RBI. So, what are your thoughts on Bregman?
I really like Alex Bregman as a player. Like you said, he has been just consistent for the majority of his career. Yeah. He was a great playoff player when they were, going on their runs. And
for sure,
I really think a team that needs a steady bat is the Seattle Mariners, because their downfall last year was they could not hit the ball. Like, they had all those arms, Castillo and Wu and Bryce Miller and Kirby. Yep. Like, they had one of the best, if not the best, 5 in the entire league. And their bats let them down. J-Rod had a down year. Cal Raleigh's a guy who's going to give you 35 home runs, but he's not going to hit for average.
Right.
And, they need a bat like that, a guy who can, stop the bleeding and get on base and maybe get home. So I think the Mariners, that would be a nice fit for him.
Right.
But he is just, he's a good player. Like, anyone would be happy to have Alex Bregman.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And if he's smart, he'll go if Houston plays there and gives him a good contract, that's great. It just, again, my thing is, some of these guys they overpay for. The players want 30, 40 million a year and for long-term contracts, and I don't know that you can do that with some of these players. It's just unfortunate that some of them feel that they need to get that much money for multi-year deals, but I don't know. We'll see. He's a really good player, and like you said, he's clutch in the playoffs, so he'll go somewhere and he'll get good money. It's just that will he get what he wants? Real quick, tell me Max Fried, Blake Snell, like, where do you see them ending up? You thought Snell would go back to the Giants?
I actually think a team that we mentioned earlier that's, Johnny was talking about, is a team that needs to refine what they are, and you have the lead guys to do it, but their pitching is kind of And I think that's the Texas Rangers for Blake Snell. I think they just need a big horse on the mound. Snell's not going to give you 6, 7, 8, and even a complete game. He's not. He's going to give you a nice 5 to 5 2/3, maybe 6 innings, but he's going to strike out 12 to 13 when he's out there. Like, he's that good in that limited span. And I do think the Rangers need someone like that because, they had a lot of injuries, and you need a guy who's going to go out there and shove when it's needed. Like, you got Scherzer, who's been injured. You got DeGrom, who's been, I really wish injuries wouldn't have taken a toll on him because he is just so incredible to watch. And then I think they're probably going to lose Eovaldi. So I think if you could go and get a Blake Snell, and then for Max Fried, another team that, they were just short. And I think another starter, because, you have to keep up with the arms race that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I think that the San Diego Padres would be a nice spot for Max Fried. You have to have the pitching to shut down the Dodgers. That's who runs it in the National League. You have to keep up. They have the bats, the Jackson Merrill, they got Tatis, who's obviously incredible. Like, they have guys, and I think you need pitching, and Max Fried is a very, very nice pitcher to complement Michael King out there. So I think if the Padres could go get a Max Fried, they will spend the money to go get a pitcher. So I would love that if I was a
That's a
Padres
really
fan.
nice. They need to make that move. So that's a good. I think you're spot on there. I think they'll make a move for him as well.
I think so.
Yeah. Trinan's out there. He's 37. Clay Holmes is out there. Although he's not a closer anymore, I don't think anybody will take a chance on him as a closer unless it's a small market team. I don't think it's going to be like one of the big guys.
Relief role like
gets nervous or something in the closing situations and he throws it over the middle of the plate. Taylor Scott's out there. Teoscar Hernandez. Do you think the Dodgers re-sign him?
I'm going to call my shot here. I think the Detroit Tigers get Teoscar Hernandez. That's my one bold prediction.
Teoscar.
Really?
And that is my bold prediction. I would love if the Tigers would go out on a 2-year to a 3-year deal for Teoscar, pay him the $20 million because that bat is special. Like in the playoffs, he was a different animal in the playoffs. He revitalized his whole approach at the plate with the Dodgers, and I think the Tigers need another alpha bat to pair with Riley Greene, and that is my shot call of the offseason is the Tigers get Teoscar Hernandez.
You've been waiting that for that's great. I love it. He impressed me.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody's got to, there's not all the money in the world, so somebody's got to squeeze out of the Dodgers world, right? And that might be Teoscar. It might be something they regret. But yeah, I like that call.
Who does he replace in the corner outfield for y'all?
If that's the case, I think that they would probably make Matt Vierling the long-term third baseman, which is where he played a lot last year. He's kind of a utility guy in a sense that he can play third, he can play first, he can play the outfield. He's a great guy to have, and he had a pretty good year last year. I was pleased with his performance, but we have really, really good outfielding defenders. Riley Greene was a finalist for Gold Glove. Parker Meadows, if you get a chance to just watch him play defense, like he is just so fast. He's a 6'6". He just, those long strides. He saved so many games for the Tigers. Wow. And, he's a true center fielder. And I think if you wanted to go that route, I think you could take away, a big chunk of that outfield and hide Teoscar out there. If you wanted to commit to Teoscar, if you're the Tigers, you could take away, a chunk of that right field. You can shade Meadows and shade Greene over because they have range. So you can make an impact. It's like what the Phillies did with Castellanos. Right. Like they completely shaded him to a certain side because I think he was really bad going to his left. And so they made him shade over more towards the line so he could get those reads. So, and Parker Meadows can cover so much ground. So if you wanted to commit to that, I would love it. And I think you could make it work.
Okay.
I like
that prediction. All right. So we want to wrap this up with kind of a rapid fire risers and fallers. Like we're not going to go through each team in each division, but I know you know this MLB so well. Give me your top few. Let's start with the fallers. Like who do you think is just going to drop off and they're going to be much worse than this past season? Who stands out besides the Yankees, which we know suck going into the off season? They're going to lose. I'll let you go into it. I'm already upset. So go ahead.
I think it's going to be a team in my division, and I think it's the Minnesota Twins.
Okay.
The Twins, they were in that wild card spot all year.
Right.
And they are just so they showed at the end of the year, if you put pressure on them, they fold. Like I think they saw the Tigers coming and they were folding. They were losing to bad teams.
Right.
And they're just really inconsistent, and they just have those injuries. They have the Buxton gets hurt every single year. And it's looking like Royce Lewis is going to be doing the same thing. Royce Lewis is extremely talented, but I think they're going to lose Carlos Santana in free agency. I think, Correa can opt out after this year, and I don't think he really cares to play in Minnesota that much longer. And their pitching staff is where it draws the line for me, because they have, you know, Joe Ryan, who's solid, and they have Pablo Lopez is okay, but that bullpen is, you know, it's shaky at best, and the back end of that rotation shaky. So that's one of my teams. And then in, you know, the National League, it's kind of tough, but I think it's the St. Louis Cardinals.
As a riser
The
or
St.
fall?
Louis Cardinals, you know, Arenado can opt out if he wants.
Right.
Goldschmidt's gone. You traded Edman last year. I mean, I just don't see how it gets much better. Like, you know, they're moving Wilson Contreras to first base. So where in the world is Jordan Walker going to play? Because he can't play the outfield, and you're already using a DH on Alec Burleson. So you're starting one of them in the outfield.
Right.
And, you know, they have Sonny Gray, but they just rely on these old inning eaters like the Lance Lynn's, the Kyle Gibsons, and their farm isn't bad, but it's not great. I don't think they can make a true impact. So I'm sorry to one of my buddies, Skyler, but the Cardinals,
Yeah.
they're on the downfall in the NL, and then in the AL, it's the Minnesota Twins for me.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and those are spot on. I'll just throw in there. I think the Yankees. I think they're going to lose Soto. I said earlier I thought they would get him if he gives the hometown discount, but I know Verdugo's not coming back. I know Torres is not coming back, and I know Rizzo. If he comes back, it's going to be, he's not going to be the starting first baseman. So he could be, like a platoon guy or a lefty off the. I know he loves being a Yankee, but he just can't hit anymore. Certainly not for power. And so you've got that. You're going to have to replace left field. I know with Dominguez is coming up, and they're going to give him left field. He can't field. He had a lot of trouble fielding, and pitching wise, they'll be okay. Rodon and Cole will be fine. I think they're just I don't know. Catching wise, they're okay. They're going to have to replace the second base. I think the Yankees. I think Orioles and Red Sox will jump up, and I think the Yankees will fall. And in the National League, I think the Mets went on a wild ride, but I don't know that they'll be, back. So I think they're my fallers. What do you think? Anybody stand out for falling?
My fallers, I have to go with. I'm gonna go. Our friend Brandon's gonna hate this, but I'm gonna say the Braves are gonna probably struggle.
Okay.
They showed flashes of not have warning signs this year.
But they get Acuna back, right?
Yeah, but they play better without him, and then they don't play better. And then this year it was, I don't know, they looked not like the usual Braves I was used to seeing.
I don't hate that.
Strider going out and Morton getting older, it kind of, I don't know what the president is there with pitching, and then offense really was a down year for sure. So I don't know. They're gonna have to re-sign another bat somewhere in the outfield probably.
Right.
It's got to step up more too. Catching, actually, I think Murphy and Darnett, I think they're pretty solid, but Riley's got to step up too. He really didn't have a great year. So
American League. 30-win season for the White Sox.
I don't know if they can fall any lower.
They can't. No, under. Yeah. I mean, he's right. I think he's right on with the Twins. I think they
I'll
fall.
go with Twins. Yeah. I liked what you said there about them. I think they do fold like chairs, and they're kind of like a shadow of a team. Like you just see it.
Correa is not going to make it through another season, I don't think. Anyway, even if he's, what I mean? Like he may opt out, but he's not. He's a shell.
He's been hurt too.
Yeah, he's got that degenerative issue. I don't know. I think you're spot on that. All right, Briggs, give me your risers. I know one of them, but go ahead and tell me why again the Tigers are going to be on the rise.
I'm gonna go with the Tigers for one. I just think that AJ Hinch has this group ready to go. You got the postseason experience. I think you gotta go get a couple pitchers, maybe a couple bats, but I think they have this core. Like they have the core young guys. You got the farm you can use. I really do think this division's going to be tougher, but like I said, I just think that this core is here to stay. Like they have guys who will, do whatever it takes. Swipe a bag, go dive and make a nice play. You
Right.
know, sack bunts. Suicide squeezes. They'll do all that. And I think they really embrace the do whatever it takes to win mentality.
Well,
So the
they
Tigers, of
certainly saw how
course,
it worked.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll do an AL and an NL. My AL, I'm gonna have to go with the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, afraid you were going to say that.
The Red Sox, I think, are
It
very
was great having you,
capable to
Briggs.
do.
We'll see you.
They have the market to spend the money.
Yep.
And, if they land a couple of these guys, like they have the young guys, they have, Connor Wong had a nice year behind the plate.
He did.
Rafaela and Willie Abreu look like they're going to be a nice piece. Duran looks like a nice piece, and Casas and Devers, like they have a lot of players that can play everywhere too. And so a team like that mixed with some starting pitching, if they can get a couple starting pitchers, no matter who it is, I think this team could be on the rise.
You said earlier you think Burns will be in there. Yeah, if they get Burns and then they pick up, I don't know if Sasaki would be interested in them.
He could be.
If they pick up a couple of top flight pitchers, then it changes that whole division, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Toronto's going to do. All right, so Red Sox in the AL. What about in the NL?
In the NL, it's kind of tough for the NL for a riser, but it's going to sound gross, but I really, really like what the Brewers are doing. The Brewers, Jackson Chourio looks like he's going to be a star. And they just have this, it's kind of weird. They're kind of like this ragtag group of guys. Like they don't have like a superstar guy.
Right.
Rhys Hoskins was a huge part of that team, leading those young guys. And, they had Sal Frelick come alive there late. And they just have a bunch of guys. They kind of remind me of the Tigers, but they're better than the Tigers. But they just have like this group of guys that know what it takes to win. And I think that they could add a couple of vets mixed with Chourio, who I think's a rising star, and he's here to stay for a long time.
Right.
So I think the Brewers, they're going to be in a weak division. It's a chance. Like that division is theirs for however long they want it, because the only team that could sneak in that I see is the Cubs, but we all know the Cubs fold. So it sounds gross, and I don't even like saying it, but I like what the Brewers are doing.
They re-signed the shortstop, Adames. Is that how you say it?
That's one piece. I think they're going to try. I do, but these big market teams that are looking for that piece at shortstop, Willie Adames he's just such a good player.
He's a
Hits
good player.
for pop, has a great arm.
Yeah.
He's what you want out of a shortstop. So I think the Brewers will try to get him back.
And he's flourished with the Brewers for sure.
Yes, for sure.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, all right. So you've heard it here first, man. We got the whole skinny on the offseason.
Who's your riser?
Who's my riser?
Risers.
I liked what Briggs said. I do think, and I hate to admit it, I do think the Red Sox are on the rise for sure. They do not like seeing the Yankees, the Orioles.
I know.
And they have money, and they'll spend it.
Orioles are going to continue to rise too.
The Orioles, I think, certainly hitting wise, they'll probably be in the top 2 or 3 hitting teams in the league. Yeah. They're just that good. If they lose Burns, that's a huge blow. And I don't know who they'll get, but certainly they'll be in the mix. You're going to have a lot of 90-win teams in that division.
I think a dark horse could be in the NL. That's a riser, would be the Nationals.
You think so?
You got Cruz, Woods.
I like that, Johnny.
Mackenzie Gore has been pitching pretty well for the Nationals.
Okay. I could pretend I know who that is, but go ahead.
He's the left. We got a few other guys that are kind of on the rise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a dark horse.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So the great thing about baseball and going through this off season is we'll be able to see what they do, and then when we do our next year, predictions for the upcoming season and who looks good, and we'll have you back on, and we'll kind of talk about, do we still feel the same way as we did in the off season? What changed? What looks better? What looks worse? What are we excited about? And then, of course, for me, one of the most fun things to do, no matter what team you're a fan of, is seeing the next superstars when they're in the spring training games in the early season. You go, wow, did you see this guy and what he's doing for their team? And anytime you see someone who's just about to make an impact on the game, it's a lot of fun. And I think that to me is what makes baseball so much fun, is seeing these guys, come from the minor leagues to the major leagues and just kicking some tail. So we'll do that. And thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. You definitely delivered. You certainly know your Tigers. All things Michigan. So we appreciate you giving us the skinny on how you started as a baseball fan, as a fan of Michigan teams, and we look forward to having you on again. And we appreciate you.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me on. I told Johnny when he was first setting this up that I love talking ball. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do, is no matter what it is, I love talking sports. It's so much fun. Get other people's opinions and hear their takes and stuff like that. It's always fun. But you guys got a really good thing going here. You guys are shooting up pretty fast, and it's cool to see you guys do this. It's really cool.
We appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you on it. And hopefully this off season works out well for the Tigers. The Yankees, I'm not sure what we're going to do. If we re-sign Soto, I'd be happy. But I don't want to give anybody $650, $700 million.
You don't?
I don't. I don't have it to spare. But if they give it to him, that's fine. But we'll see. Thanks again, buddy.
Thank you, Briggs.
Of course, guys. Thank you.
All right. That was our episode 18 with Briggs McMullen. It was a great episode. He just knows his stuff. He knows baseball. So please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. And down below in the video description, we've got our link tree for our merch. We've got Black Friday sales. Please check that out, and we'll see you next time.